going to be working on solving inequalities in 2 steps, but we're going to jump ahead a little bit in tonight's video, and we're going to solve inequalities with variables on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and solve this inequality and graph the solution, remembering that all the rules that I had before, including SID, are going to hold for solving inequalities just the way they did for equations. I have 2 terms on either side of my inequality, so it's okay for me to go ahead and start isolating. If I had more than 2 terms, remember I would need to simplify first, but I'd have just 2 terms. So I've noticed that this 2m is smaller than this 4m, so if I subtract 2m, it means I end up with a positive variable and I don't have to worry about switching my inequality in the end. I'm going to subtract, which gives me 2m minus 3 is less than, these guys cancel out, less than 6. I am not ready to divide yet because I still have 2 terms, which means I still need to finish isolating. I'm going to add on 3 to both sides, which leaves me now with 2m is less than 9. Now I can divide. I have one thing on either side of, in this case, my inequality or equation, which is what we were working with before. So I've got m is less than 9 halves. Okay, it asks me to graph this solution. So I am here at 1, 2, 3, 4. Well, we'll pretend that's 5. 9 halves is going to be 4.5. Notice it says less than, so I have a donut hole where the 4.5 would be, and then I'm going to go less than 4.5. All right, so now I need to remember the S part of SID because I've got several terms going on here on either side of my inequality. So on this side, I'm going to have to distribute. That's going to give me my 2k minus 6. On this side, I've got like terms, which I'm going to have to combine. So I've got a 6 and a negative 3, so that's going to combine to 3 plus 3k. I really like not having to deal with that negative, dividing or multiplying by a negative, so I'm going to go ahead and isolate by taking this 2k off the left-hand side, because then I end up on this side with a positive k. So I've got negative 6 is greater than 3 plus k. Now I've got that positive k, so I don't have to worry about my inequality flipping. I still need to get rid of my 3 from both sides. I have negative 9 is greater than k. It's a negative 9, that's fine. I don't flip my inequality because I did not divide or multiply by a negative number. But remember, finally, I'm going to write it as k is less than, because I'm reading it backwards, k is less than negative 9. So graphing it very quickly, I've got a negative 9 down here. It's less than, which means I'm going to have my open circle and going less than or to the left. Okay, so here I've got only 2 terms, and I've got 1 term on the left, so it's pretty natural to go ahead and isolate by moving this 5t over to the other side, which of course is going to mean that I end up with a negative variable. Okay, so remember, when I am dividing by a negative number, dividing or multiplying, I have to flip my inequality. So my t now becomes greater than negative 6. Okay, I divided by a negative number, therefore my inequality will flip. So I am greater than negative 6, so I am open circle again, going to the right towards 0. Okay, so just like we had with equations, there are identities and contradictions. So let's look at an example of that. Notice if I am ready to isolate because I have two terms on either side, I'm going to take my 2x and subtract, and I end up with -7 is less than or equal to 5. Well, -7 is less than 5, so that seems okay. And notice I could plug any number in for x and that inequality will still hold. It'll still be true. So let's just plug in a number, doesn't matter what it is. Let's plug in 4 for x. So 2 times 4 minus 7 is less than 5 plus 2 times 4. I'm just doing an example. So 8 minus 7, is that less than or equal to 5 plus 8? Well, 1 is less than or equal to 13. So it does still hold, and in fact, no matter what number we plug in for x, it will always be true. So this is an identity. And if we were to come up with an inequality that was not true, then in fact, then remember that would be a contradiction. So in an identity, I have infinite solutions. And were it a contradiction, I would have no possible solutions. So I always want to throw in my real world examples. So to win the blue ribbon for the harvest melon crop at the county fair, the average weight of Emily's 3 melons must be greater than 37 pounds. 2 of her melons weigh 31 pounds each. What is the least number of pounds a third melon could weigh in order for Emily to win the blue ribbon? So it turns out that all 3 of them need to average 37 pounds apiece. So what do I know? I know that, grabbing my pen, I know that if I add the 31 plus the 31 plus whatever that third melon's going to weigh, because my M is going to equal the weight of melon 3. When I divide those by 3, it has to be greater than, so greater than, not greater than or equal to, 37 pounds. Hopefully this made sense. So if I take the weight of all 3 of them and divide by 3, the average weight will be greater than 37 pounds. So now I can solve by multiplying by 3 both sides. I need to get rid of that denominator. So I've got 31 plus 31 plus m is greater than 111. So I'm not going to solve yet because I can combine like terms over here. I've got 62 plus m is greater than 111. Now I can isolate, and I find out that the weight of that very last melon must be greater than 49 pounds. That sounds like a pretty big melon. So in order to win the blue ribbon, Emily has to have that third melon be 49 pounds, because if I average 31, 31, and 49, that would be greater than 37. And final real world example, A+ Advertising charges a fee of $24 plus 10 cents per flyer to print and deliver them. Print and More charges 25 cents per flyer. I want to know at what point the cost of A+ advertising is less than the cost of Print and More. So the way I'm going to figure that out, I'm going to figure out what A+ charges. Well, they charge 24 plus, and I'm going to make F my cost of flyer. $24 plus 0.10 per flyer. And this is going to be my A+ advertising. Over here I've got my Print and More, and they just charge 25 cents per flyer. And I want to know when A+ is less than. So I'm going to put in my less than sign. And I've got two terms over here, but I only have one term, so I can go ahead and isolate by subtracting. So I end up with 24 is less than 0.15f. Now I can divide. I only have one term on either side. That's going to be 160. Apologize if you can't read that. Is less than f. And remember, I'm going to read that backwards. So f is greater than 160. So the cost of, so A plus is cheaper if I order at least, not at least, more than 160 flyers. I apologize. So if it's greater than 160 flyers, then A plus will be more. Less than 160 flyers, print and more will be cheaper. Hopefully this all made sense. Come in the morning if you've got questions.